For a long time, I wouldn't say I had a quote favourite game. There was some I liked more than others, but I didn't have a game impact me as much as Yakuza Like a Dragon did. I got it 2 years ago when I went out with a friend and I saw the game at a ridiculously cheap price. It was like 13 quid. So I thought to myself, screw it, I might as well get it. It'd be a decent time waster. But since the game has a big fat picky 18 rating on the case, the cashier naturally asked if I had an ID, and upon saying no, I had to put the game back. Now you're probably asking, Ella, how the hell did you even get the game though? I do have a reason. My dad wasn't too far from where me and my friend were, so I called him about what happened and he got the game for me. But even if I did have an ID with me, the cashier probably wouldn't have let me buy the game to begin with, since I've been stuck looking like a 13-year-old for God knows how long now, so she would have thought I was like about my age. But after getting the game thanks to my dad, I got home and shoved it straight in the Xbox, and for the next 7 months it was literally all I played on that console. I have a bad habit of dropping games for other ones, so at the time, I just abandoned most, if not all, the other games I was playing while I got obsessed with Yakuza 7. I was like, Okami HD? Fallout 4? Fire Emblem 3 Houses? Never heard of them! But since Yakuza 7 was my introduction to the franchise aside from all the memes, I wasn't really sure what to expect when I first played it. But after sitting down and completing the first few chapters, there was something about this game that just clicked for me. One of the aspects that really worked for me are the characters. Most of the video games I played have had main characters be children to young adults, so having the main cast be well to adulthood was a really fascinating look. It just makes the struggles they go through both in the story and their lives have a much more unique impact, especially considering the tone of the Yakuza franchise. Which is rather ironic to say the least, considering that Yakuza is one of the most batshit insane game series I've ever come across. Like, how many games can go from the main protagonist being shot and left for dead to fighting nappy-clad Yakuza in the span of a few hours? But what makes stuff like that funny to me is that I wouldn't have expected it from a, quote, serious crime drama. I went to see Yakuza 7 thinking it'd be gritty and down to earth, but the side stories and even some parts of the main story just had me in disbelief, thinking, RGG are weird as hell for doing this, but I'm all in. But on the topic of the game's story, I wasn't expecting it to be so heart-rending. I'm not going to go into too much detail just in case I spoil it, but to be as brief as I possibly can, once chapter 12 concludes, shit's gonna hit the fan. When I completed it, it felt like that me when the poster talks about a show, video game or the like, and they have 2 brackets beside them. The bigger one has something like, haha, silly little show, but the much smaller one has something like, the 5 most devastating episodes of television I've watched in my life. That's how it felt playing Yakuza 7 for the first time, since the first 12 chapters are basically, and now, we return to the adventures of Ichiban Kasuga and his merry men. What dangers will our heroes face in the starting chapter of Yakuza Like a Dragon? Will Ichiban return to Arakawa? Will Adachi finally be faster in battle? Will Kure get the kick in the nuts he rightfully deserves? Stay tuned and find out. Despite the dark tone and bad things that happen, Yakuza 7's story is hopeful and surprisingly kind of light-hearted in instances. But once chapter 13 begins, it's like, why are we still here? Why are we still here just to suffer? Everything's gone to hell. Everything we've worked for is lost. Everything I held dear is lost. Where do I go from here? What's the point? I mean, things do get better in the game, but you basically get the gist of what I'm saying at this point. But after 6 months of the game consuming my life, I eventually finished it, and as a result, I'm probably not going to look at Peking Duck the same way again. Trust me, if you know, you know. 2 months after I finished 7, I got issued as a birthday present, but when I first played it, it didn't really hit the same for me, especially since I finished 7 just 2 months prior. But after disregarding my biases, I grew from just liking Ishin to genuinely really adoring it. I got really immersive in setting, and getting to alternate and customise your fighting styles was honestly so addicting to me. But I just blitzed through the game primarily using the Wild Dancer technique, solely because Ryoma can dual wield a katana and gun and has a lot of range with the latter. The roll technique was the one I used the least though, but when I did, it was to try and see what heat actions I could pull off. I tried to grab whatever item I could to see what heat actions the game would let me do, and my reactions would basically alternate between this is the coolest thing I've ever seen to my brother in Christ, how are you not dead after that? But when Infinite Wealth was coming out, I was praying with every bone in my body it would be good as 7, but after seeing the teaser where each man wakes up in Hawaii completely nude, I was skeptical to say the least. And when stuff like each one's failed attempt to propose to Psycho and Kiryu's status as a party member came out, I was like, RGG, chill, this is way too many bombshells. Let's side note. Initially, I wasn't that happy when Kiryu came back in 8, since I felt like each one should be able to stand on his own as protagonist, to the point where I made this joke on my Instagram. Like, I know why he's important to 8's story, but at the time, I wasn't really on board with it. But when I finally got Yakuza 8, I headed home and put the disc in the Xbox and prayed for the best. And with the opening credits having each one strut across Yokohama, I thought, On second thought, maybe it was too harsh. And when I saw that the cast included actors like Alex Lee, Matthew Yankee, and Danny Trejo of all people, my ass was locked in from the get-go. I tell my dad about how far I got into the game, and I showed him a picture of the character Danny voices, and he said, "You know, Ella, that man looks a lot like Danny Trejo." So you can imagine how funny it must have been for my dad to find out that Danny's actually in the game. But back on the topic of infinite wealth, I ended up enjoying it way more than I thought. The game gets off to a pretty slow start, but it gets way more interesting when Hawaii becomes the main setting. Not only does the story get more intriguing, but it's just really refreshing to explore a new place that's not set in Japan. But there's a part of me that wonders if they'll go to other places of the world going forward. Imagine if they set Yakuza 9 in the UK or something. It'd probably be titled something like a Dragon. We didn't copy this from Peaky Blinders, we swear. To be honest, I'm really happy I got into Yakuza. Prior to getting 7, my own exposure to it having memes and jokes about how bad the English dub for the PSU game is. I can get why the dub for the first game was so lackluster, especially considering the time it was produced in, but it gave us Mark Hamill's Majima, so it did bring something good. But aside from all the jokes and memes the fanbase makes, I never thought I'd get so enraptured in a game series after buying one of the mainline games solely out of impulse. I've been thinking about going back to try the older games once I finish Ishin and Infinite Wealth, but it's gonna take a long time for me. Anyway, thank you for watching the video and listening to me ramble about Yakuza for 6 minutes.